So, hello everybody. Welcome to the first Bradford Cloud User Group event. For those who don't know, my name is Shabazz Dar. I'm also hosting with my two friends Imran Rashid and Mohammed Sajid. So I just want to give you a quick overview of what to expect. So the first session is going to be on Nerdio and WVD, an overview by Microsoft MVPs Baz Van Kam and Neil McLoughlin. I hope I pronounced that right. Followed by a bit of a Q&A. I'm sure we all have many. It's a great service and tool is Nerdio, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of questions. And then we're going to have session 2, which is first time presenter. So one of our main points is trying to have a new speaker on every month, and this month is our very own Mohammed Sajid, who's going to be doing a presentation around the recent blog that he started and why he started it and how he started it. So for those who don't have a blog, it's be a good, interesting presentation. That'll be again followed by a Q&A and then a bit of networking really, and that'll be us done. So what I will do is am I handing over to you, Baz, or Neil? Who should I give?
Neil is kicking off.
Excellent. I will give. Stop presenting first of all.
Okay.
A second to work out how to give you.
That's all right. So I will share my content and then you should all see it.
Okay.
So I'm just going to share this, and then you should see. So can you see my screen?
Not yet.
No. Okay, 1 second. Stop sharing options. Share content. Is that better?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Can you still see it?
Yep.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So welcome. Today, myself and Baz are going to give you a presentation around Nerdio. As you'll see in the next slide, I'm quite new to Nerdio, so I'm just going to do a quick introduction, and then Baz is going to take the main reins. So first of all, we'll do a quick introduction as to who we are. So myself, my name's Neil McLoughlin. I've been in IT for a while now. My current role, I work for a company called Cognizant, basically doing Windows Virtual Desktop, design and architecture. But as of the 1st of March, I will be starting as Nerdio as the UK field CTO. So very much excited, looking forward to that. So that's my email address, my Twitter, my LinkedIn, and my website on virtualmonk.co.uk. So if you want to catch me on there, you can do. So Baz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. I don't think it's changing slides, at least not with me, Neil. Maybe have a look.
I was just about to say we can see the presentation, but I
yeah.
don't know if it's in presenter mode or not. We can't see that part of it.
Right.
Hang on 1 sec. Sorry.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay,
yeah.
I'll just do it like this. All right.
Excellent.
And then if you can, yeah, right. So thanks, man. Yeah, good evening, guys. Thanks for having us on the show, and congratulations on the launch, of course. I think this is the first meeting, right? So happy to help out any way we can. My name is Bas Van Kam. I'm the current field CTO for the EMEA region within Nerdio. So, basically responsible for day-to-day business, do a lot of presentations like this as well. Been a bit busy today also with multiple conferences going on, but always room for more. So looking forward to getting started. These are my contact details. Reach out any way you would like, and always happy to have a chat about WVD, Nerdio, Azure. Go out for a run, whatever you would like. So right, take it away, Neil.
Okay, so as I said, today we're going to talk about Nerdio Manager for WVD, which is one of the Nerdio products. There are a couple of the Nerdio products. Well, hopefully Baz will go over later. So I'm going to do the intro, as I said earlier. So mainly what I'm going to talk about is why you need Nerdio, because it kind of comes up a lot, especially as stuff is changing so much in the Windows Virtual Desktop portal. So if we step back a few years, one of the main things over a few years is the skill set required to manage sort of what we call VDI, or what is now known as kind of more commonly desktop as a service, right? So if you step back to 2011, you obviously had your old Citrix presentation servers, and you had the XenApp 6.5, I think, coming in at that time. So but then things were, I would say, quite simple to manage. I remember being able to read a book, and once you read that book, you pretty much know everything, right? So you had to have your OS skills, your command line skills, your terminal services skills, your registry skills, anything was pretty much basic. Sort of programming at that time was set to kind of VB scripts and writing command files and batch scripts, stuff like that. So things were quite basic, not that much knowledge required. So if we step forward to 2018, things changed a lot. As you know, you all work in the IT industry, things happen so fast. What you learned 6 months ago can sometimes be irrelevant. So in 2018, if we step back, say we still need those sort of in-depth operating system skills, but obviously we've got PowerShell in the mix now. So, but then to manage a large environment effectively, especially when you talk about sort of Citrix and VMware, you had to have pretty good PowerShell skills. And then you're talking about your sort of Citrix and VMware came into play. So Citrix, VMware, kind of big players, always have been in the sort of VDI market and also the DAS market at the moment. So you needed to know those products, but also because we were now sort of adding complexity to those environments, and we're talking about large environments. So 2011, you're probably lucky to get, I don't know, 5 or 6 VMs onto a host and using sort of physical disks. But if we fast forward to 2018, we've got like lots of networking involved, we've got lots of storage, we've got lots of infrastructure involved, which as a person managing kind of the EUC stack, you had to know all that. To be really, really good, you had to know how everything kind of interlinked with each other. And we also had to know how to deploy packages via SCCM. That was also a big part of the job, and sort of app layering had started to come into play as well. So that's where we are in 2018. So let's fast forward to the year today. Okay, so at the moment, obviously VDI still exists, but a lot of people are starting to focus on desktop as a service, which is where Nerdio can come in and help you. So with desktop as a service, everything's in the cloud. Now, the cloud is very, very much different to an on-prem environment. As you know, anyone who's been involved with Azure, if you come from an on-prem background, the learning curve is very, very steep indeed. So I think, so what I listed here is what I think is some basic skills which you need to sort of roll out Windows Virtual Desktop. So you're talking about, obviously, you still need your operating system skills to install and configure the applications. You need your Office 365 now, because Windows Virtual Desktop integrates with Office 365. But adding on to that, we need a lot of Azure networking. We need a lot of Azure storage. We need to learn ARM templates. We need to learn how to manage sort of Active Directory and group policies within Azure. We need to manage sort of Packer, Azure Image Builder, FSLogix, all that stuff. And also that is always constantly changing as well. So as mentioned before, what you learned 6 months ago is not what it is now. And I'm pretty sure in 6 months' time, it'll be completely different again. So the whole premise of what I mentioned here is, I mean, to me, I started using Windows Virtual Desktop probably around a year ago, probably a bit more longer now. And you really do have to be very, very, very good in Azure to deploy Windows Virtual Desktop and manage it effectively. There's no way around it. It's based on Azure. It is an Azure service. And that sort of leads me on to the kind of next slide, is kind of how Nerdio can help you with that. So with Nerdio is kind of the control plane as to what you would have to do under the hood effectively. So instead of having to go and write a 100-page ARM template or 100-line ARM template to go and deploy Nerdio, we can do it all for you. So everything that is in with Nerdio, you can pretty much do at the click of a button. So these are I won't go into depth on this slide because I'm sure Baz is going to cover some of this later, but these are the kind of stuff that we can do within the Nerdio console. So we can create images, we can attach MSX packages, we can do cost reporting, we can do all that stuff that natively within the Azure portal is quite difficult to do and takes a bit of figuring out. And I think one thing which attracted me the most to Nerdio is it solves a big problem around who manages your EUC images, especially when it goes into Azure environment, right? So I come from a Citrix background. It's a similar thing where you've always had who manages the NetScaler? Is it your networking person or is it EUC person? We have a similar conversation now. I go into companies and like, well, who's managing Nerdio? Well, sorry, who's managing the Windows Virtual Desktop solution? Is it the Azure platform guys or is it the EUC guys? The Azure platform guys don't want to do it because it's an EUC product, and the EUC guys don't want to do it because, well, they don't have enough knowledge about how to manage all the Azure components which it needs. So that's where kind of Nerdio comes in and solves that problem for you. So yeah, I mean, it enables people to manage the WVD images, desktops, infrastructure who don't have all those Azure skills that I was talking about previously. And on that note, I will hand over to Baz, who will go into a bit more in depth.
Right, let me share my screen. Thanks, Neil. All right, let me know if you can see my screen. I'm not seeing the red ribbon I'm used to.
Nope.
If you're sharing with us, we can't see at the moment.
No, okay. Let me try again. That's better, I think.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, while Neil was talking, I already cut out some slides because, you know, I have nothing to add to what he told you guys just now. And this is sort of the slide that all sums it up, basically. I always mention that we enable like 80 or perhaps even 90% of your IT workforce to be able to work with and operate WVD on a daily basis without needing anything to know about the underlying Azure platform, for example, or at least basic knowledge would be enough. And of course, everything we do is automated, so you don't have to do anything with PowerShell. But as I'll show you in just a couple of minutes, you still can with scripted actions, for example, or just apply custom PowerShell code on a host pool basis or things like that. And of course, the feature gap, a lot of companies still think that WVD isn't you know, production ready. And we add a ton of additional functionalities and features on top of the native service. Reducing costs has everything to do with the autoscale engines, multiple, plural, that we've built in, and I will be able to show you guys that as well, of course, this evening. We have those for hosted charity environments, we have those for personal assigned personal desktops, and so on. And of course, because of the intuitive interface, which I will show you guys as well, you know, you will just save a lot of time. Again, everything is automated, a lot of additional Azure services that surround WVD, like Avis Logics, Azure Files, those types of things. You know, with the click of a button, basically, like Neil mentioned as well. Reinforcing existing security has everything to do with how the product has been designed and how it's built up and how it's deployed, which brings me to, well, the more technical part, basically. I just have one more slide after this, and then I'll hop into the demo right away. So Manager for WVD, it is a standalone Azure application, meaning it will be deployed within your own tenant. So it's not multi-tenant in that sense. It's actually split tenant, but we'll get to that in just a couple of minutes when I'll show you the environment as well. So no third party has access. It's not an Azure managed application, so no hosted shared VMs somewhere up in Azure that we manage for you. No, you will have full control, also from a security perspective, which is a good story to tell, of course, together perhaps with an IT partner, and you decide who else gets access to your environment, of course, if that is at all necessary. It's deployed and built through the Azure Marketplace, or there can be a partner in between, of course, also. And because of that, the marketplace, it's available in all regions worldwide. And this is how that would look like from a high level perspective. So the marketplace Manager for WVD would be available right away. It will take you 30 to 45 minutes to do the installation. I'll show you how to get started in just a second. Pretty straightforward, of course. And here you see the various customers, their tenants. You can have multiple subscriptions per tenant, of course. That's no different with Manager for WVD. That still applies. So you have that flexibility as well. And here you can see that Manager for WVD is built out of various platform as a service services. So we also like to refer to Manager for WVD as being a native Azure application, meaning Microsoft will take care of all of these services for you, so you don't have to manage the application yourself. They will make sure that these services are safe, highly available, and so on and so forth. Of course, because of this architecture, it's very powerful, flexible, scalable, but also very flexible from a development point of view. And that's what one of the things I like best about Nerdio. It's very innovative. We come out with new versions of, well, in this case, Manager for WVD every month, at least once a month, and sometimes even a couple of times per month. So smaller and bigger releases follow each other up, you could say. So that's, well, I always say that I think it's pretty impressive. And I also mentioned that before I worked at Nerdio. So that's not sales talk or anything. Let me hop over to my demo environment right here. So first, I'll open up the Azure portal just to show you guys how to get started, because it's very, very easy. And by the way, we also have Manager for WVD Community Edition. It's only allowed to be used in your private Azure Lab environment. So it's not allowed to have a company or a client customer environment associated with that. But if you would like to give it a spin or manage your own private WVD environment, make use of the automation and so on and so forth, you are free to do so. And the installation process for that is exactly the same as I'm showing you guys now. Just open up Azure, search for Nerdio somewhere. You don't have to go into the marketplace. It will find it right away. Select Manager for WVD. And all you need to do is follow the basic Azure wizard, by the way. I also, now I'm thinking about it, I also had an agenda slide which mentioned, I also wanted to talk a bit about Manager for MSP, so the product that we released a couple of weeks ago, if we still have time, but hopefully we will. Click Create, of course, or have a, watch the videos if that's something you would like to do first. And all you need to do, select the subscription you would like to deploy Manager for WVD into. Have a look at the region, of course, things like that. And some of the other things you need to fill in. So this would be the account responsible for doing the installation. And if you would like to use the automated part, so the automated installation, we will do everything for you, basically. You set this to yes, but then we ask you to disable multi-factor authentication together with conditional access, but only for the installation itself. And then afterwards, it can be enabled right away. Or use a temporary account and then throw it away afterwards because it's no longer needed once the installation has been done and other accounts have been given access to the Manager for WVD console as being an admin or a help desk employee or whatever the case may be, because of course we also have role-based access. So again, depending on the region you deploy this into, it will take about 30-45 minutes. It depends a bit what time of day, which region, how busy is Azure, and all those types of things. So out of our control, of course, but it's actually a quite boring process, I always mention, because all you have to do is wait. Sometimes, you run into an issue, and that's why we always plan about 2 hours to do an installation. But 80-90% of the time, I'm finished within 45 to 50 minutes. And even if they do not have a WVD environment already, we would normally have 1 or 2 hosts as part of a host pool build up already in that same time. And if they do have an existing WVD deployment already, we would have that onboarded in that same time, in that same hour as well, when the installation runs smoothly. And usually it does, luckily. By the way, before we do something like that with a customer or together with a partner, we always send out our quick start guide, which has a couple of prerequisites in it, just to be sure that we have a smooth experience with regards to the Manager for WVD installation. Sorry, guys. So very basic stuff is in there, the proper permissions and things like that. Make sure you are an owner with the the account you are doing the installation with of the tenant you are installing into, or the subscription at least, all those types of things, but just to be sure. Right, so eventually you will end up in this graphical user interface. And of course it will be empty to start out with because you won't have anything onboarded yet or build out yourself. And that's why I always like to start out under settings and give that a view. And basically everything you see under settings and which can be changed, added, removed, you need to think of and is this is the default, the basic configuration of Manager for WVD, where the rest is built on top of. meaning if you don't change certain things on a per host pool level, this would be the basic configuration used by the machines within your host pools and so on and so forth. Not these settings specific, but more when we get to the integrations in just a couple of minutes. And of course, I'll also show you how to configure all of those things and steps on a per host pool basis as well, because it's very flexible in that way. So like I mentioned, it's split tenant, so meaning you can have multiple tenants, add in multiple tenants, but you will always have one primary AD tenant responsible for identity, meaning authorization, authentication, and the other tenants may be used for VM purposes, for example. And again, you can have multiple subscriptions per tenant, no problem. Now, as you can see as well, you can link and work with as many resource groups and networks as you would like. And that also means that if you have an existing WVD deployment somewhere already, all you need to do is link the network and the resource group that environment is deployed into, then hop over to workspaces or tenants, depending on if it's an older or newer version of WVD, do a page refresh, and you will see it pop up that existing environment within a couple of seconds. Then here you'll see a button with saying something like associate workspace with manager for WVD, or perhaps not in that many words, but something like that. And then you will be able to do the same with the underlying host pools and the virtual machines as part of those host pools. So how long that takes depends a bit on how large your host pools are. So meaning how many machines are part of those host pools. Could be 5, 10, 20, whatever. Doesn't matter, of course. Could be 100. It all works. It just takes then perhaps 10 minutes longer, for example. And of course, that also has something to do with how busy Azure is and things like that. I almost do that on a weekly basis. It's non-disruptive, and you can do it with users actively using your WVD hosts, not a problem. So Nerdio environment, and by the way, it works in exactly the same way for tenants, but I'll get back to tenants in just a minute. So a couple of things that you might use together with support, for example, but also a couple of things you might be interested in changing in between, like the licensing model. So you can change that on the fly as many times as you would like, but the setting near the end of the month will be used for the upcoming month, meaning if you now change this from concurrent to named, it will use named licensing. It will count named licenses for the upcoming month. That makes sense. Hopefully it does. And the WVD object model is set to hybrid, something that we came up with. So you will be able to manage both tenants and workspaces, meaning old and new, from the same management interface. It's becoming less and less relevant, of course, because lots of companies do not use tenants anymore, especially the ones that are starting out with WVD. But of course, you still can. Microsoft is still working on a migration tool, which they have been for over a year, I think, almost. So there might be still people waiting on that, and because of that, using tenants. But I'll show you how to do that migration a lot faster than waiting a year. That's a bit of a joke, of course, but you know what I mean. Let me see, we have run as web jobs. So this is more monitoring. So are those jobs constantly running? Because if they don't, manager for WVD probably won't function or at all. And email notifications, you can link multiple mailboxes, and then you can configure notifications, which hopefully we will have time for to go over as well. So integrations. This is where the automation magic, like I mentioned this morning as part of the WVD Windows Magic or Windows Virtual Desktop Magic show, I mentioned that as well. So multiple integrations. For example, if you would like to make use of, let's say, Azure files, and you probably want to do that, then we've created a simple wizard. Just fill in the fields, select the options from the drop-down menus, select what you need or want to do, click OK, and then everything that needs to be done to get this working, also on the underlying Azure platform, everything that's needed will be done for you. So that's automation right there, including it being joined to the domain for you. And we have the same wizard for Azure NetApp files as well. It looks a bit different, but the end result will be exactly the same. Here you will be able, for example, to give in the storage location for your profile containers as part of FSLogix, together with the registry options you would like to use, perhaps. And again, this would be your default standard configuration. This can all be configured per host pool, per set of machines as well. REST API is available as of a couple of months. I'm not going to go into that one. And okay, let's leave it at this for now, and let's hop over back to Azure environment, and let's assume we've added in a linked network and a resource group, and did a page refresh as part of tenants. You'll see the new environment pop up. You have associated with it with manager for WVD. I mean, sorry, I've been talking for a long time today. Might slip some words here and there. But what I wanted to point out is you would then have your tenant onboarded within Manager for WFD, but of course you would like to make use of the new functionalities and features as part of the ARM model, because that's where the biggest profit is, of course. Hop over to migrate to ARM, and here you would be able to migrate over your existing host pools that you might still have over to a destination workspace of choice, if you have multiple, of course, and choose what you would like to do with your user assignments as well. So this, you can think of this as being the metadata as part of your host pool. This will be migrated very quickly as well, will take a couple of seconds. But of course, we also enable you to migrate the underlying VMs as part of those host pools also. Perhaps multiple at the same time, can go a bit quicker. How many things are allowed to fail before this whole process will be halted, and all this can be scheduled as well. And if it runs into any active sessions still on those machines, before it will then start the migration, first the users will be notified, and of course this is free for you guys to fill in with your own text. And then 10 minutes after that, or 15, 30, whatever you would like to configure, then the migration will start. So again, right away or scheduled. Okay, and then of course it will end up under workspaces and then under your host pools. And that's where I would like to start now as well. I think we'll do questions near the end, right? So if you have any questions, please note them down for yourself, especially if there are some questions about this, about the beginning, so we can, take care of those near the end. Otherwise, I would pause for a couple of times in between, but I don't have to do that now. So let's start with creating a workspace, adding in a workspace, just to show you guys how easy it is, how quick it works. Just give it a name. This cannot be changed later. This can be changed later. The friendly name is also visible by your users. Work with the description if that's something you would like to do. Of course, a resource group you need to select to create this workspace into. And this would be the location of your metadata as part of the host pool. And as you can see, these have been announced a couple of days ago, and sort of day one support. We've built those in also. I need to select one, of course, otherwise OK will be grayed out. Let's do, I don't know, EaseUS would be fine. OK, I'm going to throw it away afterwards anyway, so who cares? This will just take a couple of seconds, as you can see on the screen as well. And now we would be able to, or are able to, add in one or multiple host pools, which is, of course, something I would like to show you as well. Static, dynamic, and the only difference between the two is, it's a big difference by the way, but it's a simple difference, is that with static host pools you would add in and remove machines manually, so not using PowerShell or anything like that, but using this graphical user interface. And with creating a dynamic host pool, you can make use of the autoscale engine that we've built in for either hosted shared environments, as you can see here. So this would be the desktop experience that you would like to offer to your users. Perhaps you would like to do published applications, remote apps, sort of the same thing, of course. Single user desktop, so in a VDI type deployment, meaning a virtual machine for every user, but then non-persistent. And the same thing, VDI type deployment, but persistent, meaning personal assigned persistent desktops. And we have a separate scaling engine for that also, which I will be able to show you, of course. Again, give it a name before I forget, description if you would like to do that. Then the name prefix. And this is an important one as well, because this will be used by the autoscale engine to give all of your machines a unique name. What it will do, it will use your name prefix. It will also generate an alphanumeric string. It will append it to the name prefix, and that's how all of your machines as part of a dynamic host pool will always get a unique name. And the best thing is, it will also be able to reuse that name. So that means once user demand increases, and we'll get to that whole process in just a couple of seconds when we will configure the autoscale engine on the next page, basically. So when a machine is added because user demand has increased, it gets a unique name, of course. Then user demand decreases, the machine is completely removed. Then a couple of hours later, it's added again, and then it's able to reuse that same name. So handy for GPOs and certificates and all those types of things, and other things you can think of course. You would need to select a network to connect to, and of course a desktop image to be applied to these machines. I always select a random one, or well, it's not that random, of course, but because you always select the same basically, so it's not that random. But as you can see, we also have integrations with Azure custom images. You can use your shared image gallery images, import those as well, which I'll show you guys later on, or have any other type of images that you may have available on the underlying Azure platform. And then again, I always select a marketplace image because of the demo. And I'll get into desktop image management, importing, updating, and so on and so forth, applying those to existing host pool, so re-imaging, basically doing maintenance and all those types of things after we're done with the auto-scaling part, if that's okay with you guys. So we can work with all of the different VM sizes available within your region. The same thing applies to all of the OS disks that go with the various VM sizes also, as you can see. Of course, a resource group here as well to deploy this dynamic host pool into. And here you are able to quickly assign users or groups of users, but I always like to show and do that afterwards because you will have a better overview. Click OK, and it's now opening up the auto scale configuration page. This will take a bit longer when compared to creating the workspace, which I did before, which only took a couple of seconds. And then we will be able to, to configure auto scaling, but also tell it how many machines we would like to have part of this dynamic host pool, amongst other things. There we go. So auto scaling is disabled by default. Enable it with the flip of a switch. And this is the information we just had a look at. We just selected together with reuse host names, as you can see here, which can also be disabled, by the way, if you have a use case for that. Now, all of these fields are freely selectable or adjustable, as you can see here with regards to all of the numbers, except for the percentages, of course. That's 0 to 100. Nothing more or less. But all of these fields have a direct impact, or selections I should say, have a direct impact on your estimated monthly costs. Now it's estimated because minimum and maximums are always correct, but your actual cost will be somewhere in between, of course, because you never can predict user demand beforehand and those types of things. Makes sense, hopefully. But at least you will have an indication of, maximum and minimums. And if I change 5 into 2, see what happens with the prices as well. Or the amounts, I should say, probably. And again, this is applicable to the underlying compute and storage resources as part of your WVD environment, and even more specific, this specific host pool. And we do this and we show this for every host pool individually. And as part of the autoscale engine, it also tracks, the savings that you get in percentages, but also in hard dollars. It calculates that for you over the last 30 days on a workspace and tenant basis, also per host pool basis. And that's something you are able to see within the solution as well. All right, configuring autoscaling. And before I continue, please have a look at all of these icons. Use them everywhere in the solution if you are going to start using Manager for WVD someday. So Neil, I'm sure you are going to in the next couple of weeks. Use these to your advantage. I did the same thing when I started out, and it will tell you exactly what it is that you are configuring, where you can go to for additional information and all those types of things. Very handy, sort of the first line help desk built in, if you will. Now here we can tell the autoscale engine, or we do tell the autoscale engine that we would like to have a base host pool capacity of 2 machines, meaning 2 virtual machines will always be part of this host pool. And then we can also say one of those machines always needs to be in a booted state. So to take care of user experience after work hours, in the weekends and in the evenings, and so on and so forth. You can set this to 0 as well if you would like to go for 100% cost optimizations. But we see a lot of companies, most companies actually configure it like this. So 1 or multiple machines always being in a running state, to take care of those out of office workers, out of office hours workers, I should say. So 2 machines, one will be active, the other one will be booted as well when user demand increases, which brings me to the scaling logic in just a minute. And when both of these machines are running and it's still not enough to handle the user demand, you can also tell the autoscale engine that it is allowed to build 2 or 20 or 50, whatever you would like to configure, of course. We're only limited to the maximums of the Azure platform, basically. So in this case, 2 additional machines to be built on top of the base host pool capacity. So again, these machines will be booted and shut down, and these machines will be built from scratch and be completely removed when no longer needed, based on this scaling logic that you configure here. We can work with CPU usage, average active sessions, available sessions, as you can see here as well. And again, this will tell you that we're working on RAM usage as well. And here you can say, for example, add in 1 machine or multiple when the CPU utilization exceeds 65% for 5 minutes or longer. And do the same thing with removing 1 or multiple machines. So this would be stopping, but also completely removing, depending on what it needs to do and with which machines it is working at that time. So how many are still active of which type, basically. And do that when utilization drops below 40% for 5 minutes or longer, as you can see here as well. So, okay, very handy, but we would like to have a bit more detail to work with. So we can also tell the autoscale engine that, for example, it is only allowed to stop and scale in, so completely remove machines between certain times. Now, this is always a good example, I think, so somewhere in between for most companies. As of 6 p.m. in the afternoon, beginning of the evening, until 8 a.m. in the morning, until a new workday starts, the autoscale engine is allowed to go and look for machines that it is allowed to and can shut down, because we use the scale in aggressiveness together with these times to tell the engine that once it is allowed to go and look for machines that it can shut down, that these are sort of the rules by which it can or cannot shut down machines and in which order and so on and so forth. So if you set this to high, it means that it will put the machines in drain mode. It will look for empty machines first and shut those down, scale those in. And then it will look for machines with the least number of active sessions, and it will start to follow that route. And of course, first, when it starts to shut down or scaling machines with active sessions, users will be notified. And again, 10 minutes, 50, 30, whatever you would like to configure after that, the machine will be actually shut down or scaled in. If you set it to medium, it will do drain mode first. It will look for the empty machines again in that same order. But then after that, it will only look for machines with disconnected sessions, and it will leave all of the other machines alone. And if you set it to low, same thing, drain mode, but it will only look for machines that are empty or inactive sessions, and it will leave all of the other machines alone. So this is basically how we take care of, the user experience partly with a machine running, for example, but also cost optimization and sort of the fine line in between, I always like to say. Pre-staging hosts, so you can have a number of hosts at a certain time booted and ready to go, so in a booted state. So let's say 8 a.m. Monday to Friday, I would like to have one or multiple machines in a booted state, ready to go, taking care of login storms, boot storms, and of course the user experience because of that in general, you could say. Messaging we covered, and you'll see that once or twice more as we go forward, because we always like to inform people if we need to before we do something, of course. That's how it should work. So auto heal broken hosts, also a very cool feature. It's only been 2 months or something like that, but almost everybody is using this. So the WFD agent can give back certain statuses, and here we would like to focus on the negative ones, if you will, and you can add multiple, as you can see here. You can even add them all. And then together with no active sessions, no sessions, or has active sessions, and then tell the autoscale engine what to do with those machines if it encounters one of those issues. So for example, restart the machine multiple times with so many minutes in between, and or leave as is and go through the loggings yourself and wait for people to call the help desk, or remove and recreate completely, because that's something that the autoscale engine is really good at. It can do that really fast within a couple of minutes. And of course, you'll also know for sure that the issue will be resolved because, the machine will be built from scratch. It will be completely clean. The image will be reapplied. All of your agents will be reinstalled, reconfigured, and so on and so forth. Rejoined to the domain and all of those steps. And talking about those steps, I will be able to show you that as well in one of the upcoming sections in just a couple of minutes. So this is now still part of configuring a dynamic host pool. So 2 machines. Let's see what happens if I click save. It should trigger the autoscale engine, meaning it has built, like it does here, it has built a new host pool, a dynamic host pool. We told it to have 2 machines, part of that host pool at all times. It now should notice that there are no machines available right now. So it's now building 2 new jobs to build those 2 machines fully automated for us. There we go. Always takes about 10 to 15 seconds. Pretty stable in that way. And then you can see by clicking on the details what happens. At what day, what time, by which user, if it's a manual started task, for example, but of course this is now done by the autoscale engine, and this auto refreshes, as you can see here as well. I always like it when I say that and I time it perfectly, so happy that that's on video as well. So as you can see here, and I'll also like to show you that you can always hide these types of messages, but if you go into logs, you will always be able to look at the last 30 days and filter and all these types of things. And all the tasks that Manager for WFD is able to do for you, as you can see here, multiple or a lot actually. So adding in host, that's something we just did. Look at the details, and you'll be able exactly to see everything that it has done as part of that process. Together with the option, for example, to do some more advanced troubleshooting by directly downloading various logs directly from the underlying VM in the .zip format. So very handy to have that there as well. All right, let's hop over back to this one. It's now building those machines. Let's see if personal assigned desktop, because we have a separate autoscale engine for those as well. So these would be personal assigned persistent desktops. And as you can see, this would be the way to go back into your autoscale configuration so you can change it at any time, and changes will be applied within just a couple of seconds. Configure, so this looks different, but the end result will be exactly the same, meaning you will only have machines running when you need or want to have them running. So no lingering around, during nighttime, evenings, when users have forgotten to log off, for example, or have forgotten to shut down their machines, whatever the case may be. So same concept, working hours to set for the autoscale engine to operate within or outside of. Power of aggressiveness instead of scale in aggressiveness. And again, high, medium, and low applies. And also the same rules apply here. So if you set it to high, for example, it is allowed to shut down a machine with an active session. So this is single, not plural, of course. So no drain mode, because this is a VDI type deployment. And then power of timing can be set to continuously, once or never, though continuously makes the most sense probably if you would like to go for cost optimization, and especially within a VDI type deployment like this, you probably, or that's probably your main aim. But then again, if you set this to high, these two work in conjunction with each other, of course. So outside of working hours, it is now set to continuously shut down machines, and it's also allowed to shut down machines with an active session. So that's probably not that handy to do, because now active users outside of work hours will be constantly interrupted, need to relog on, they will be logged out again, they will constantly keep getting messages that maintenance has been done, or whatever you would like to fill in there, of course. So probably set this to medium, so it's only allowed to shut down machines that are empty or with disconnected sessions only, something like that. Right. So this can also be combined with one of the role-based access roles that we have built in, and of course we have multiple, as you can see here as well. So we have those covered also. And we have a 1-minute KB article telling you exactly what it is, the differences between these roles. But here I would like to focus just a minute on the end user role, because if users within Manager for WVD have personal assigned persistent desktops, together with the end user role, those users will be able to log into Manager for WVD themselves. And then they will be able to start, stop, and restart their own machines, and also to log up their own sessions. And also, if they are a member or have assignments, for example, to a hosted shared desktop type of host pool, they will be able to log off their own sessions there as well, for example. Not to do any restarts or shutdowns or anything like that, of course, because multiple users will be affected. But that's something that we've built in as well. And if you combine that with the autoscale functionalities, together with all of the other management options you have per host pool, like also configuring your disconnected times, your idle time settings, and those types of things, not many use cases you cannot handle, basically. All right, let me hop over back to a host pool, because I mentioned I always like to do and show afterwards with regards to assigning users to a host pool. Before I forget, go to manage, so another separate menu, but very straightforward to get to, of course, users and groups. And all you need to do is search for the group or the user you would like to assign, select it, and click on assign or assign, whatever you would need to do. And that's basically all there is to it. And user sessions, I don't think we have any active user sessions right now. Oh, we have. Well, not able to shadow those, of course. But as you can see, you can shadow these sessions. You will be able to send messages, to disconnect them, to log them off, and so on and so forth. And multiple filter options as well, especially handy within bigger, medium-sized environments, of course, to be able to find the users you need to assist, for example. So covered that also. Let's hop over to desktop images. Let me just take a sip of water in between. I also have a beer here staring at me, but I'll save that for later. That's nice. So image management, desktop images, applications, and so on and so forth. Multiple options to discuss here also. So first of all, let's have a look at the options that we have with adding in images, or in this specific case, adding in an existing VM to be used as a template. Basically, all that it needs to be is a dynamic disk underneath. So meaning we could copy over the SAS URL into here, and we will be good to go. Just have a look at some of the other options, and then here it gets very interesting again. Of course, you need some time, a couple of hours, perhaps half a day, to get to know the solution a bit. But once you do, you will see that we have many built in, sometimes even a bit of hidden gems, to make life as easy as it possibly can be. You can see an integration with the shared image gallery, for example. the scripted actions I mentioned at the beginning, and we have a separate section on that here as well. I will be able to show it to you guys. Will only take me like 20 seconds. It's very straightforward, but again, at the same time, very powerful as well. I always like to mention that we always try to hide all of the complexity for you. But if you would still like to make it a bit more complex using PowerShell code, you also make it a lot more flexible, even more flexible, of course, then you still can. Use our scripted actions, for example, that we've pre-configured for you. Perhaps reuse them, alter the code, or come up with your own scripted actions. It's all possible. And this is all available per host pool also, so not just with importing an existing VM, as I'm showing you now. If you've made your choices, done your selections, done some additional configuration options around code perhaps, click OK, and then the import will take 20 to 25 minutes, depending a bit on, again, how busy Azure is, how big the VM is, and so on and so forth. Azure Library, same options, but within the Azure image part, we have multiple options, more options. So you could work with the custom-made images directly available from the Azure Marketplace. The one I selected, for example, was this one when I started to build the host pool, which is now still being built in the background, of course. We can work with Azure custom images. You can import those as well. But as you saw with creating a new host pool, you don't have to import these images. You can select them directly from the underlying Azure platform as well. We will just make them visible to you. And there's another thing you will have to do for that. But of course, importing your images into Manager for WVD has a couple of added advantages. One being you will be able to manage everything around WVD from the same management interface, making it as easy as possibly can be, basically. And of course, the management options available within Manager for WVD can make life a lot easier as well, which I'll highlight in just 30 or 40 seconds from now. And of course, the integration with the shared image gallery also. And again, you don't have to import those, but it helps if you do. And also this will take 20 to 25 minutes, depending on how big those images are. Though an image from the Azure Marketplace is 127 gigabytes, if I'm not mistaken. So will definitely take 20-25 minutes. So once imported, you have multiple things you can do. For one, you can power it on, pretty important to start out with. Then choose to make a backup for 1 or multiple weeks. And if the retention period expires, it will only throw away the backup. It will leave the original image alone. So you don't have to worry about that. Of course, you don't have to make a backup. And then once it's powered on, you can see that the button will change into power off and set as image again. And then you will be able to use the IP address or either the name and connect up to it via RDP, for example, or use whatever you would like to use. Then make your changes, install your software, do your updates, security patches, whatever the case may be. Then come back into Manager for WVD, click power off and set as image, and we will seal the image for you, do all of the sys prepping and so on and so forth. And you will also not be limited to the 8 times maximum for sys prepping a standard image, by the way. Everything that needs to be done to work around that is basically done every time you do an update and you click this button. And of course, everything that needs to be done to open up the image, attach it to a VM, all that is hidden from you also. Then, for example, if you have made multiple backups, you can do restore. Then you sort of have versioning as well. You can go back multiple versions in time, go back in time if it didn't work out in test production, whatever the case may be. You can do that as well. Let me see. Of course, you can start the backup manually. You can delete it. You can clone your image. And if you clone it, so this is what we used prior to the backup functionality. And if you clone it and select a network in a different region, it will clone it over to that region as well. And as you can see, a lot of additional options around managing your images also. So too much to go over now in detail, of course. Then you can also work with set as image manually. And basically, I'm not going to go over all this in detail, but you can set up a whole automation suite within Manager for WVD. So have images, updated, automated on a weekly basis, for example, then have them sys-prepped, sealed, and so on and so forth, have them applied to 1 or multiple host pools for testing purposes or whatever the case may be. Then perhaps on Monday, reapply them to your production host pool. That can all be automated, basically using all of these graphical user interfaces. And of course, also a change log, which is available separately as well, to log your changes for future reference for your colleagues. Always handy to do, which was a big feature request about a half year ago. Then if you have made your updates, let's hop over to an existing host pool. This is a pretty cool part also. Resize, reimage, and then select the image you would like to apply. So perhaps one you just might have updated, or select them directly from the Azure Marketplace. the custom images, like I mentioned previously, also shared image gallery, whatever you would like to do, just select one. Choose what you would like to do with the VM size and the OS disk at this time, how many hosts you would like to update at the same time. If it's a bigger host pool, for example, with 25, perhaps even 50 hosts, will take a lot less time. How many things may fail? So this is sort of the same wizard as with migrating over those machines from the older to the newer model, like I mentioned at the beginning. And this can all be scheduled and even be repeated also daily, weekly, monthly, if that's something you need or would like to use. And of course, if it runs into any active sessions, again, the messaging mechanism will apply here also. Now, once we do the re-imaging, we will stay away from the underlying NIC resource, meaning DNS won't change, IP address will stay the same, and of course we are also able to reuse the host name and so on and so forth, so you don't have to worry about those types of things as well. And by the way, when it comes to hosts, as you can see, multiple things we can do manually. I'm not going to go over them, but if you would like to have a reboot schedule without reapplying the image over and over again, you can do that like this, for example. So pretty straightforward to enable. Will take you about a minute. All right, so integrations. I talked about those in the beginning, but also that these are configurable on a per host pool basis. Of course, that's something I would like to show you as well. Go over to properties. So this way we also went over almost all of the sub-menus as well, basically. Active Directory, pretty straightforward. You can divert from the basic Active Directory as configured under settings, where we started out basically under Azure environment, work with different Active Directories per host pool, for example, work with different organizational units. That's something used in practice a lot, by the way. WVD is changing the load balancing mechanism of the native server. So if you have a use case for that, that also works. Then VM deployment, this is a very cool one as well, too much to go over, but here again you can see the scripted actions to be applied per host pool, for example, custom PowerShell code, and all of these gems automated built in for you. So the use of availability zones, the auto install of GPU drivers, and all those types of things. Certificates around Msi App Attach, pretty cool stuff. Custom RDP, very simple, very straightforward, but also efficient. Multiple to get to, because I think there are like 40, 38, 39, 40, something like that. The more advanced ones, you know exactly what it is that you are configuring. Very easy to get to, very easy to configure, as you can see on the screen as well, of course. So tagging would be just tagging your resources, but done within Manager for WVD, and then use those for billing purposes as part of your subscription, for example. Avis Logics, an example I gave at the beginning. So this will be selected by default. Use the defaults, meaning the settings configured under the integrations of Avis Logics over there. And then if you want to diverge from the default, deselect it, use a different storage location, different registry options. And as you can see, the default has a bit less. This one has a bit more. So that's how you would do that. Properties, let's see the various monitoring options we can enable, disable, and slightly configure per host pool, and session time limits. Very handy to have this as well. So I mentioned those, I don't know, 15 minutes ago as part of the auto scaling part. And here you can say, so when does an idle session needs to be turned into a disconnected state, for example, when does a disconnected session needs to be logged off, and a couple of other very handy things to have a look at, to consider, and to perhaps even configure. And again, per host pool. So these would be the scripted actions. Again, very straightforward, but also powerful. You can add in your own scripts, of course, work like that. You can view our scripts and then do a clone, and then perhaps reuse the code or alter it, fine tune it, enhance it, do whatever you would like to do. Especially handy if you would like to use the optimizations. A couple of things might be in there that you do not want to use or do not want to apply to your images, for example. So very handy to have that also. You saw with notifications under settings how to link an existing mailbox, and if you then go to conditions, you can set all of the rules as well. Let me open up an existing one. So this would be all filled tasks, but you can target just about anything available within your WVD deployment, as you can see here as well. What you would like to monitor and be notified on. So these again are all of the tasks available to you within Manager for WVD, by which user, so all users available within Manager for WVD, and of course which statuses would you like to be notified on. All available from within the same interface. Let me hop over quickly to updates, because we have new updates being released every month, at least one, like I mentioned during one of my slides. So the latest one will always be on top. We will always have a link to the release notes, all public information. Normally, we would publish the new features about a week beforehand, before we release a new version, so you can see what's coming up. And then a couple of days later, we will also add the demo videos and links to articles with supporting information and things like that, KB articles, documentation from Microsoft themselves, and so on and so forth. Also non-disruptive, you can do this during work hours even, will take 5 to 10 minutes depending on how big the new update is. Let me see, loggings, monitoring, scripted actions. Oh yeah, Msi App Attach. So let me finish with that one, and perhaps we have just about 5 or 10 minutes left to show you a couple of things around Manager for MSP also. So working with Msi App Attach is sort of a three-step process. First, you would need to link storage. So locations for you to store your Msi App Attach packages, which would need to be an Azure file share. And of course, if you don't have any, easy to configure using the wizard. Then you would hop over to App Attach. And then you might be, or you are able to upload any existing images that you might have with working App Attach packages. Or if you have more legacy Msix packages, we help you to migrate them over into a working App Attach package. That's something that we also do. Image versioning around your App Attach packages, for example, also available. And of course, step number 3, if you go to an existing host pool, one of the menus again, the top one again, Msix App Attach, and then click what you would like to publish through this specific host pool to your users. Starting with the image library, which would mean a library within Manager for WFD, holding your images, holding your App Attach packages, and so on and so forth. It's pretty self-explanatory if you go over the wizards. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you guys and talk a bit about regarding Manager for WFD. Let's see how this is going. Still in progress. Let's see how far they are. Should be, it's now installing the Azure monitoring agent from Sepago. Okay, pretty cool. So this takes 20-25 minutes, sometimes 30-35 minutes. It all depends, like a smart consultant would say. So that applies here as well. So let me hop over back to my slide deck and see what I have next. So this would be the demo, Manager for MSP. So this is something that we released, I think it's now 4 weeks ago, so a small month ago. And Manager for MSP has everything that's available, or will have eventually everything that's available within Manager for WFD as well. So technically there's not much of a difference. Though we have another product called Nerdio for Azure. That's where basically the company was founded on about 4 years ago. Again, Nerdio for Azure it was named, and that's is named because we still use it, we still sell it, and it's used by tens of thousands of users globally. It's a hosted shared management plane that we manage for you, that we give MSPs access to be able to manage their customer environments. And what we did with Manager for MSP is we brought the best of both worlds into one solution, meaning the best of Nerdio for Azure and the best of Manager for WFD comes together in Manager for MSP. Meaning Manager for MSP is a multi-tenant solution, which Manager for WFD is not, but Manager for MSP also does, let me skip one, also does user management and 365 license management. You will be able to add in and manage, remove, autoscale, normal infrastructure as a service virtual machines. So it's not limited to just WFD. It can do the same things around image management. Msi App Attach, what I just showed you, will be part of Manager for WFD as well. And so on and so forth. As you can see, Manager for WFD, specifically WFD and more enterprise focus, so project-based and those types of things. And Manager for MSP, it's a different market, and that's why it's a different product as well. Also a different architecture, but it's built out on or based on the same principle, basically. So here you can see various platform as a service services again. So it's built in the same way, in the same scalable and flexible manner as Manager for WFD is as well. So this also means that we now come out with new updates, because it's now in public preview, on a weekly basis even. And then later on, that will not change. It will become weekly, monthly, sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, but at least once a month, just as with Manager for WFD. And it also enables us to build over all of those functionalities, or to port over all of those functionalities that we have within Nerdio for Azure and Manager for WFD, and make them available within just a couple of weeks, perhaps a few months, 2 months, within Manager for MSP as well. So deployed within your own tenant, being the MSP's tenant, and from there on you will be able to connect up to as many customer tenants as you would like in a very straightforward manner. And I will be able to demo that in just a minute or so. And we don't need anything to be alive within the Azure tenant, by the way. So we don't need an existing VM, or we will not deploy a VM to be able to manage then that environment. Nothing like that. I'll skip this. This is sort of the same thing as the slide that Neil showed you guys as well, part of Manager for WVD. This is sort of an important one because it's very flexible. So these are the various customer deployment scenarios that are supported by Manager for MSP. And as you can see, you can start out with absolutely nothing and be done within 60 minutes. So meaning Manager for MSP has been installed. You would connect up to one or multiple customer environments, well, multiple, probably dozens, even hundreds perhaps. And then if that customer still has nothing deployed within Azure just yet, it will take around 60 minutes to go from greenfield to a working WVD deployment, including a resource group, including identity and those types of things. Though in practice, you'll probably see these happen the most. A couple of virtual machines active already, perhaps an existing WVD deployment. Many times identity will have been set up. So meaning a traditional Active Directory synced up to Azure Active Directory in the form of a couple of traditional domain controllers, perhaps B-series machines, even reserved instances, those types of things. But then again, it doesn't matter because we support it all. And let me hop over back to, I hadn't opened it yet, so Manager for MSP. I won't be able to show you guys everything, of course. You will start out outside of a customer environment. So this would list all of the different tenants you are connected up to, meaning your different customer environments that you would manage from this portal. And as you can see, the look and feel is the same. It's just a different color scheme, if you will. And we also have a very extensive cost estimator, and this will tell you exactly what the cost will be per month, per user, per desktop, and so on and so forth. And it would be cool if it worked. Yeah, there we go. So this is just a very extensive fill-in exercise, but very detailed as well. And it will list everything from discounts, licenses, purchasing, already owning, types of machines, how many hours per week used, Evans Logic's profile storage, and all those types of things, as you can see here. So too much to go over now. Just know that this is already live, and you are able to use this in, in practice. We have multiple customers already using Manager for MSP in production. Back to accounts, just to show you guys a couple of things. So if you would like to connect up to an existing tenant, again, this is just a standard Azure wizard. So I won't be able to show you the full thing, but you need to select the account, need to authenticate. And then these fields, or a couple of them, will be pre-populated. So like the account name, for example, you will then be able to select the subscription as part of the tenant if there are multiple available. And then you would need to select what you would like to do with identity. So go greenfield, basically, create a new Azure ADDS, perhaps select an existing one, or maybe there is an existing identity, so classical domain set up already, synced up to Azure AD, and so on and so forth. That's totally fine as well. With networking, you would be able to create something completely new, including subnet, feednets, and everything that goes with it, or just select an existing one to work with as well. And once you get to step 3, you will need to do what you have selected here, of course, and the same applies to Evans Logic storage. Do you have an existing UNC path already? Would you like to create a new Evans Logic's storage location in the form of an Azure file share, those types of things. And we have a 5-minute clip showing you exactly, pausing on all those steps, how this would work if you would like to see that in action. But then if you go back to your existing accounts and click Manage, then one thing I can show you very quickly, if you go to WVD, this is all exactly the same as I just showed you guys. So I don't have to show you anything about that. But again, it does a lot more. So user management, managing user accounts, assigning licenses, resetting passwords, and all those types of things, as you can see in the menu as well. Very easy to add new users, pretty straightforward to manage. Everybody can do this with just a basic IT knowledge. Assigning desktops, so meaning host pools, very easy to do as well. Groups, same thing. We can manage all types of groups. You can edit them, make changes if that's something you need to do at any time. And of course, adding groups works in exactly the same straightforward way. But this is the part I also really like. So being able to add in multiple traditional Azure VMs, if you will. Join them to the domain, enable AHB at the same time, if you like. You can work with all of the various machines available within your region. Pretty straightforward to do. And then afterwards, you can, of course, generate an RDP file, start and stop them, but also, restart. Add in a disk if you need an additional disk for whatever reason. Work with resizing the VM. Very cool that this is available in this way. Of course, they will need to be rebooted, but that can be done at night, for example. Delete the VM, manage its IP address, DHCP even if that's something you need to do, and auto scale as well. So turn this on, flip off a switch. It's more basic than, of course, when dealing with multiple users on a system and those types of things. But let's say you can still configure the workdays plus the timing. And then say, for example, this needs to be a pretty beefy D-series machine during daytime. So depending on the hours that you configure there, depending on your time zone, of course. And oh, those were my 60 minutes on my own timer. I'm almost finished, guys, just 1 or 2 minutes. And then tell it, for example, to outside of work hours to power it off, or turn it into a more cheaper D-series machine. And if you do this for multiple of your traditional VMs, of course, you will save a lot of underlying resources and meaning hard cache as well. So again, the same auto-scaling mechanism applies to all of the WVD workloads, including personal assigned desktops that I showed you guys as well. And now we have all this for traditional Azure virtual machines as well. And a couple of modules still being built on, but as you can see here, with the integrations, it looks exactly the same as I just showed you guys as part of Manager for WVD as well. So quickly being able to show you guys a couple of things around that also. This I already mentioned. And the Tech Insider program, not sure if you guys are familiar with this, but we have a pretty strong growing community. I think we're nearing the 400 on the Meetup. We like to organize events almost on a monthly basis, and it's not just about Nerdio. Last month I did a session on ephemeral OS disks, for example. There is then, near the end, a bit of Nerdio involved to make it a lot easier to work with ephemeral OS disks, so the autoscale mechanism I showed you guys as well. But 90% of that session was about storage and storage types and how ephemeral OS disks work, what they are, how they are, where they are located, and all those types of things. And of course, a Slack channel to ask your questions and those types of things. All right, let's have it. If you have any questions, of course, and I will take a sip of water in between and perhaps stop sharing my screen so somebody else can take it if they need or want.
Baz, I think you deserve a sip of your beer, mate.
I will do just that.
Does anyone have a question? I do, but I'll let someone else go first.
I think Neil's done a good job in answering them in the background, Bas. He's been.
Oh, okay. Right. Oh,
chat.
yeah. Didn't notice, of course, in the chat. Oh, yeah. Right.
There's one question I've kind of got. So just towards the end there, it was quite interesting. You showed a little bit around non-WVD servers and how you can manage those and add those in.
Yes.
Do you see that being the evolution of Nerdio? Obviously, it's very WVD oriented in its current format, which is amazing. And like Neil touched on, with WVD, there's so many other aspects to it, like the automation, the storage, etc. You do need to have quite a bit of experience in Azure to really manage it fully. So it makes it much easier. But do you see the evolution of Nerdio going down that way, being like a more of an Azure infrastructure as a service management tool rather than just WVD?
Yes, well, it depends a bit on the line you are viewing. Well, let me say it like this. So Manager for WVD and Manager for MSP, you cannot say two totally different products because there is a lot of overlap, of course. But the business cases they serve are completely different because the MSP landscape is different from doing WVD projects within the enterprise world, basically, where IT companies help their customers, perhaps with the help of Manager for WVD, for example. But their Manager for MSP doesn't make sense because it's a very different business model as well. That's also the word I was looking for. But yes, we are aiming to become basically the one-stop shop. Everything surrounding WVD and very core WVD focused, of course. So that would involve monitoring, and as you could see, that has evolved as well. I wasn't able to show you guys that, but as part of the latest release, so last week, we released direct integration with some of the native Azure monitoring services, so the workbooks that they came up with around WVD, for example, that's now standard part of Manager for WVD as well. And the biggest part that we focus on when it's about or around Manager for WVD is keep innovating on top of the native service. So we always like to think that we're a year, perhaps a year and a half front of Microsoft. Like with the migration stuff, for example, we have that built in for like 7 or 8 months already, and Microsoft is still working on the public preview, which is just a small example. But of course, it's also how Microsoft works. They depend on partners to close the gaps. I talk to Microsoft representatives almost on a daily basis. They also help us with customer assignments and end customers directly that come up to them. They are looking for certain functionalities that the native platform cannot offer, and they also know it's not on the roadmap anytime soon or perhaps never. And that's when Nerdio comes into play. So we get a lot of leads, if you will, via them as well. And that's definitely the target to keep expanding the internal ecosystem around WVD and Manager for MSP just as well, of course. Yeah, perhaps the market for Manager for MSP is even bigger than Manager for WVD. It might be the case, but yeah, I wouldn't call it a direct evolution, because it's now bringing the best of both worlds together into a single product, you could say, of those two solutions. But if you look at the route that Manager for WVD has followed throughout the last year, well, that's a pretty big evolution, because we have come up with many enhancements, many additional features, functionalities, and a lot of those came from guys like you. So from partners, from community folks. That's how we form the roadmap. We have a lot of ideas ourselves. We have a lot of smart people working for us. And as of March 1st, there's another one joining, I heard. So having high hopes for that as well. I mean, Neil, of course, but yeah. So that's a bit of how that works. So we are aiming to become the one-stop shop, Azure WVD, more specific with Manager for WVD and everything that an MSP needs to be able to successfully and easily build a cloud practice. I think that's the best way to sum it up, and that includes pricing and packaging, because of the cost estimator. That's has gone through evolution as well. Yeah. Helping them with deployment, automation, and of course optimizing the environment to save on underlying resources and costs, basically make it as easy as possibly can be.
Thank you for that. We've got another question from John Lunn, who's surrounded by screaming kids, so you don't want to come off mute. It's a question on the MSP manager. Is it built to integrate with Lighthouse, or will it respect the delegate's role for clients already being managed via Lighthouse, or does Nerdio implement its own delegation of control?
Yes, it's our own delegation of control, which has already built in partly, and we are now working. That's actually something we're doing in the next coming weeks, building in additional roles. So as of this time, you will be able to add as many admins as you would like, which would have full control within the environments. But you will also be able to invite external folks to be able to manage certain parts or certain tenants within Manager for MSP, and multiple roles, role-based access roles, will be added going forward. So there's no direct integration with Lighthouse at this time.
Kind of one quick question from me, and second question from BT actually, because John's also BT, and yeah, I didn't expect that. So Neil mentioned at the start that who manages your WVD, who manages the environment. Does Nerdio change that dynamic? Where does the split now sit with, is it the Azure team, the 365 team, the desktop guys? I tried to glean that from the demos, and it was a really good demo, so thank you. But I'm trying to see how Nerdio really affects that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a good question and a hard one to answer as well, because I think it will differ greatly per company. So, not every company has separate teams for, separate things like EUC or image management or networking. The bigger ones do, but the smaller shops do not. But I do think Manager for WVD or MSP, whatever you would like to use, enables you to, or enables more people to be able to do the same work. So I've seen many examples of, automation, and I always like, the cool demos and all of the presentations, because I almost see them daily around Terraform and PowerShell and, well, Jenkins and whatever you can think of. But to be able to work with that in smaller and bigger organizations, you need to have a couple of very dedicated and smart folks to be able to set that up, to manage that ongoingly. And one of the biggest challenges is that not everybody is into it. And if you're not into that type of automation, it's not something you can tell one of your employees, you need to go do that, because if they're not excited enough, that's not going to work. Definitely not. And another thing they worry about or have to deal with is, okay, everything runs smoothly, something breaks or something needs to be changed, and they leave the company or they get sick or are on leave. And what do you do then? Are you going to hire some external consultant, which is of course expensive? And they by default will leave the company because they are external and hired folks. So I think our solutions definitely can play a big role in that also. But to tell you exactly where now the split is of can a help desk employee now also manage images? Yeah, probably not. It depends a bit on his level of expertise, but also experience. That's probably more important. But definitely, yeah. When I was a help desk employee, I did stuff like that as well because I thought it was interesting and it would get me to higher places. And so, it depends a bit on the individual, I guess, also.
Yeah, and the appetite for risk, I assume.
Right.
So
yeah.
are they happy to break the image for a company? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it adds a bit more flexibility as well, though, right?
Yeah.
So, say, for example, in a company, you've got Dean, you're an EUC guy. You've got John, is an Azure guy, right? So when we talk about sort of automation and scaling, so if the customer comes to you to say, I want to scale the environment up or down by certain hours or certain requirements, so whose job is it to do that? Is it Dean's job? Is it EUC guy? Or is it John's job as the Azure guy?
Yeah.
So Nerdio gives you the flexibility for either of you to do that. So to me, that's where I see it. I don't know what you guys think, but it's just giving you that extra flexibility and added responsibility for anyone to do that rather than a specific person, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sorry, John's just put in the chat. It's always going to be Dean's job.
Yeah, thanks. That comes with being the understudy. Thank you, John.
Excellent. Thank you, Dean. That was a good question. Thank you. Has anybody else got any questions? Okay, excellent. Neil, Baz, thank you so much for that presentation.
My pleasure.
It's the second time. Sorry, go on, Neil.
Oh no, I was about to mention our pleasure, of course, and unfortunately, I need to hop off once we're done because I need to, go manage another booth, do another presentation.
I just wanted to say that it's the second demo of that the service I've seen, and I'm still blown away by it. So it's the first time I've seen the MSP one as well. So no, amazing tool. Thank you very much.
Awesome, great to hear, and thank you guys for having us on the show, of course.
No problem. Last, before you go, sorry, if anyone wants you to give them a demo for their company, how do they get in touch?
Oh, sure. Just drop me a note, via one of the socials, or give me an email, or drop me an email, and I'll look at my agenda, and we'll schedule something right away, or with Neil, of course, going forward also.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, guys, and
Thanks, Baz.
have a good evening, and enjoy the beers later on, I hope, and talk to you guys later. Thanks.
See you later. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Excellent. No, thank you to both Neil and Baz. That was amazing. So now it brings us on to our second, final session of the evening, which is I'm going to hand over to one of my co-managers, Saj, who is actually presenting for the first time. So as I said, one of our aims is to try and get a new presenter on every month. So Saj, do you want to take it?
Yes, thank you, Shabazz. Welcome, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Bear with me.
It's that silent moment.
Don't worry, we'll start very soon. Can you guys see the screen? There should be nothing on there at the moment.
Just your desktop.
Is that better?
Yeah,
Yeah,
got it.
see the presentation now.
Welcome everyone. This will be a quick presentation on why blog and how to blog from a complete beginner's perspective. Mine, of course, because I'm just starting out on blogging and talking. So welcome. A little bit about me before we begin. So I've been working in IT for over 15 years. I've had lots of roles over that time and worked with lots of different technologies, starting with Windows, Windows Server, Windows Desktop, VMware, Citrix, started off with Metaframe XP all the way up to 6.5. I haven't done it for a few years now. NetApp, VMware, and most recently I've been doing some cloud, Azure mainly, Azure IaaS, Azure Networking, Azure Migration, a bit of ASR, and most recently I've been working on Azure Intune and Microsoft Teams, Team Security. But I'm not going to talk to you about any of that this evening. What I'm going to do is talk about why you should all consider setting up a blog and how to go about setting up one. A few weeks ago, we had a conversation with Gregor and Richard Hooper, and I think Imran posed a question to them. And Gregor obviously would like everyone to set up a blog. And what I took away from that was both Richard and Gregor put a lot of stuff in the public domain, blog, and more recently a lot of video content. And it benefits them because they could go back and review anytime they want, but it also benefits the wider community. Myself, I've benefited a lot from community content. And I've been wanting to give back to the community for a number of years, but I didn't really have the appetite to set up a blog. And the other thing I took away from that conversation with Gregor was that how much people like that motivate and inspire me, and going forward, how much you can potentially inspire other people to do the same thing. And the more we share with the community, the more it benefits us and the wider community. The other thing I understood was that it's not just about how you did something, it's about why you did something. So two people can implement the same solution, but the reason why they came to implementing that solution, that story that you have to tell is unique, and it's unique to you. And the more you share, the more we benefit as an overall community. Moving on to how to blog, essentially at a broader level, you need a domain name, and a domain name you can register. Now, for me, that was the hardest part. I went through about 300-400 permutations. Most of them were taken. Some of them were premium domains, never heard of that, and they came in at a cost of £300-400 up to £150,000. I found one at, which was a bit too rich for me. So in the end, I opted for something nice and simple and unique, like my name. So that's the one I've gone with for this moment in time, and you need somewhere to host it. So you have, broadly speaking, two options. You can go for a fully hosted solution, most popular being WordPress.com. There are other providers, or you can do it yourself and get a hosted solution with somebody. Mostly I'm going to look at the idea of doing it yourself and buying a hosted package with a provider that's out there. So you have access to WordPress.com. In WordPress.com, you have multiple packages. There's a free option. It's limited in what you can do with it, and it comes with advertisements. If you want to take away the advertisements, you have additional packages, a personal one that gives you the ability to remove WordPress.com ads and a few other things, but it starts at £3 a month. It goes all the way up to £36 a month. There are other providers that do the same thing, so you don't necessarily need to use WordPress.com. WordPress is probably the most popular one out there. Alternatively, you can use the software from WordPress.org, which is open source. You can download it and install it on your own machine. If you want to try it locally, you would need a web server running there. It's fully configurable, and it comes with lots of themes that you can use. Some are free, some will you'll have to pay for. And if you look at WordPress hosting, there are a lot of providers out there. Most people have heard of GoDaddy, 123Reg. If you look at TechRadar, they're WordPress hosting for 2021. The top three that they list are Bluehost, TSO Host, and InMotion Hosting. For myself, I chose a company based on my conversations with people that I know host websites and do blogs. And there's a less known company called NetNerd. There's quite a lot of less known companies out there if you Google them, or any other search engine if you want to use. And based on their recommendations, that's the one that I've gone with at this moment in time. Once you've registered, you purchase the package, you'll get access to a cPanel because this is Linux hosting. I'm not doing Windows hosting at this moment in time. Scroll down, you'll find to install WordPress, and it's one-click install. You click, you wait, and it installs it for you. But before you install, there's a couple of security considerations that you should take into mind. The first thing, the default username is admin, and if you don't change the default username, if somebody wants to try to hack in your site, they already got 50% of your credentials. Now, WordPress is popular, and most people try. There's a lot of hacking attempts on WordPress. So ideally, you want to change the username to anything you want it to be, but not admin. Set a password, because you don't want to use the default password that comes from the hosting provider. So if you scroll down a little further, you'll find that there's a plugin that you can install. It's called Limit Login, and as it states, it limits login attempts. It limits login attempts to 3 retries. It locks you out for 15 minutes. If you're locked out 5 times, you get locked out for 24 hours. You also have the ability to pay for a paid version or Loganizer, which is a limit login paid version, and it gives you the ability to add MFA to your solution, which is an added version in the pro version of login limits. Now, once you've done all that, click install. Like I said, it's a one-click install. You wait, and 40 seconds later, you've installed WordPress, and you're good to go with your website. Part of the install installs a MySQL database for you, and with the options that you've chosen, you've already enhanced your security. And it also will install a number of default themes. Now, like I said, I've gone with myname.com, sajidm.com for my blog. So you would use sajidm.com /WP admin to log into the WordPress portal, which I'll show you in a bit. But you need a domain name, and if you have your domain name with your web hosting, you don't need to change the name servers. In my case, my domain name is registered with 123reg, and these are the default name servers for 123reg. Your provider will give you a new set of name servers, which you need to override these and click update, and you're good to go. Well, I say good to go. It does say here it takes 48 hours. In my limited experience, it only took 10 minutes for that to propagate, and I was able to access. The one mistake I did make was I didn't clear my cache. So it took me a long time to work that one out. So once I cleared the cache, I was able to get to my website. So a big fail on my part there. Just want to remember the next time I try this. And like I said, my blog is sajidm.com /WP admin. Once you're into your WordPress, and as you can see, there's multiple options on the left-hand side that helps you to customize and configure your blog. Now, before you do that, there's a couple of other security things that you should consider changing. In the user settings, I don't know if you can see this, guys. All right, if I zoom in a bit, is that better? So here you have a display name. If you don't change your display name, it will use your user login name. So when you post a blog, it will post a blog with your user login name, the thing you're trying to hide from hackers and people with malicious intent. So change that to something that you want to change it to. So change mine to Saj. I've also changed my first name here to Saj because that's what everybody knows me as. And in general settings here, you have site title and tagline. So when you post a blog, it'll post the blog will have the site title of sajidm.com, and the tagline will say blogging about all things tech. You can set this to whatever you want, and that's what we changed. Here it defaults to United States English. You don't have any other choice. You can choose other languages, but as far as English goes, it's United States English is your option. And then the other thing you want to change is your permalinks. Now, permalinks are how, if somebody wants to tag your blog into something, the link that they're going to use. Now, let me just zoom in to make this clearer for you. You have various options. You have a plain option, which is just your name, and it tags at the end. Day and name format, month format. So it'll be your blogname.com.co.uk.eu, .reg, whatever it is, with the date format, a month format. If you want it, you can have a numeric format, and then your post name at the end, or the post name, which is your blogname.com, and the post name. So when somebody tags in your post, that's what they will use to tag it in. There's a couple of benefits for this. So one is aesthetically more pleasing. Also, Google rankings, as I learned the other day, rank your site higher if you're going to use that as your permalink and not any of the other options. The other thing that you'd want to do before you start doing is a search engine optimization. If you go to plugins, there are lots of plugins for search engine optimization, which makes your blog search engine friendly. It's an install and enable. There are other options that you can configure, but simply installing and enabling it will make your blog search engine friendly and optimizes that for search engine display. The one I'm using here is all-in-one SEO. The other thing, like I mentioned earlier, is you have themes. Now, what it would do is it will install a number of default themes for you. You have the ability to access hundreds of free themes, or you can upload paid themes. Let me just stop sharing my screen for a second and just share the site. So it's easy to show here. So if you go to appearances theme, so this is me logged in, sajidem.com, WP admin, you've logged in, you've got lots of ability to configure this. Any plugins that you have, SEO, your login limitizer over here, brute force protection, two-factor authentication, which I mentioned earlier, you can configure here. This is a paid-for option. So under appearances themes, it will show you, or the default themes, it will show you the theme that's active, which is Alexandria at this moment in time. Under add new here, you have the ability to pick from literally hundreds of themes that you want to use. From popular themes, latest themes, you can search here and it'll show you lots of themes that are available to install and customize. Under customization, you have the ability to customize any of these particular themes. Under pages, you can define how many pages you want in your blog. So for me, there's just about me and a contact me page. Under posts is where you will post all your blogs. Once you're done, finish customizing, you can visit your site. And if I just drag this from that screen to here, about an hour of installing this, customizing this, you have a basic site that looks like this with a couple of posts in there, and you're ready to go install your blogs. This is a plugin which Imran, my teacher and guru in all things WordPress, showed me how to install, and it just circles through your certifications. And the template itself, if you click on, this is a post, for example, it has built in like previous posts, like posts. I've not done anything to add any of this in. This is already plugged in the template. It has posted by Saj, the date. It also has my name, sajidem.com, and blogging about all things tech. And within an hour, you've got access to a blog. You can start putting up content. You can search content. It's available to you, available to the wider community, and you're good to go. So that's a quick session and a quick demo on how to blog and how and why you should all consider how to blog. Thank you for your time on this.
Great job, Saj. Thank you very much. Like I said, that's Saj's first ever presented session. I think he's doing an amazing job. It's a really good slide deck. And it's great to see that me and Imran have been egging him on for a few months now to get his blog up and running. So it's amazing to see it in the flesh. Does anybody have any questions?
Before questions, one thing I forgot to mention, and I know how much Shabazz loves to build up suspense on new and upcoming content. So I won't tell you that we're looking to do a recorded session on setting up a blog, from registering your DNS name all the way to customizing the blog, posting your first blog on post, SEO optimization. Imran will be running all those sessions, so keep an eye out for that. And I didn't tell you any of this, Shabazz.
Thanks, Saj. Yeah, so it's something that we feel is going to be aimed at more kind of new techs rather than some of the more established ones who most do have a blog. So for those sort of kind of younger, maybe students coming out of university, they want to start a blog. So it's going to be a bit of a video series on like literally a bit like the kind of hero to zero to hero thing that Richard and Gregor are doing, but this is going to be for a blog site. So me and Saj are going to be the students, and Imran's going to be the teacher. So that'll be a little video series that hopefully in the next month or so will be coming out. So I don't think anyone's got any further questions. But
yeah, one question from me. One question.
Oh, sorry. Dean.
Sorry, I was waiting for you to finish. I mean, I personally found blogging really difficult, and I started a little while ago. And I think it's because I don't like documentation, and it's essentially documentation, isn't it? And I avoid writing documentation as much as possible throughout my working day. So to then sit at home and write documentation, it felt a bit weird. But then I realized it was more documentation for me and documentation for like the public and customers, the community, rather than one customer who was going to just keep it and squirrel it away and not show it to anyone else. So it felt better. But then today I've started doing video content, like you say. So you're going to do a video series, and I think that's going to sort of hopefully sit well with a combination of the two. Because I don't think I'm cut out to just write pages and pages of blogs, but also I don't want to just do videos. But then I watched a video from Cloud with Chris Reddington, and he mentioned something called Podscribe, where essentially you can get them to transcribe your video content into the words you're saying, and then add that to your blog. So you don't need to really write a blog. You just say, this is what I talked about. Here's the video. Here's the transcription. And that helps with accessibility and maybe even that SEO thing you mentioned. So Google will be able to troll through that video, because Google can't watch a video to pick out the words. So it might help with that.
That's really
not really a question. Sorry, I thought
no, but still,
just thoughts that came up.
No, that's good. That conversations are part of this user group. So no, thanks, Dean. That's really helpful.
Yeah, good. That's quite a good question, Dean, because you're not alone. I think Gregor was saying last week he prefers the video content over the blogging. So yeah, some people enjoy blogging. I enjoy typing, but I'm starting to enjoy the video content now since I've started Bradford Cloud User Group. So I end up timing down on my blog more on videos. But yeah, it's just one of those, isn't it, where some people prefer it, especially when you've been been documenting at work and you've had a really long day, you can't be bothered. But yeah, some people enjoy it, some don't. But yeah, that's quite a good one, that where you actually embed the video with the content.
Yeah,
that's a good. Yeah, that's a good tip.
I think Sam, you have a question?
No, it wasn't so much a question. Again, it's just more around the discussion around blogging. I also have a blog. I do struggle, like yourself, Dean, to, you do a lot of documentation during the day. The last thing I want to do is write a blog. I did try and set myself a goal of at least 2 blog posts a month. I've fallen well short since. But one thing I did start doing, actually, and it's an easy one for me, because I'm Office 365 orientated, so modern workplace. Teams is my specialty. And what I started doing was looking in the Microsoft 365 message center, and any upcoming changes, any upcoming features. It was an easy blog post, if you know what I mean. The information's pretty much already there, and it's just literally, hi guys, have you seen this? Link to Microsoft's blog post. But then you're getting recognition then because you've posted about it. People are seeing your site, seeing your traffic. So it is a bit of a cop out, but still, you can then, and then that could actually force a discussion on your blog, if you've got comments enabled and stuff like that. And also, video is not something that I've really ventured into. I find it extremely difficult to do a lot of my videos because a lot of it involves Teams equipment, so Surface Hubs, MTRs, that kind of level stuff. But I do use OBS and a couple of screen capture sort of devices to make videos and sort of demonstrations. So that's kind of an easy one to record. And OBS is actually quite simple to use once you play with it and create your own template. So you can always record, stick it on YouTube, and link it to your blog, like you say. So
yeah.
Sam,
I mean, I use OBS exclusively for the one video I've done, but I've done 3 or 4 before that one video I put out today. And John Lund, Johnny Chips, who's typing right now, uses OBS for all his content, and you've hopefully seen that. That's brilliant from what he's putting out. I just wanted to point out that I don't think looking at what's new and what's coming out is a cop out. I think that's brilliant, because I personally don't look at any of the stuff that's new in any of the stuff that I don't deal with. So I'm on desktop. I don't look at Office 365. I'm not going to keep up with the changelog in 365. I certainly don't look at the Azure stuff. So once a week, I listen to John Lunn talk about what's new in Azure, and he gives me his view on whether that's important, whether it's not important. And it's going to be your view on it, right? And that's the difference. Rather than just, this page is now coloured yellow. I don't care. I don't know what that means. Does that matter? And you can tell me.
Yeah, definitely. But again, yeah, it's kind of it is an easy sort of post because you can just look and there's always something in there around Teams. I mean, you look at the Teams roadmap, there's 200 features due coming out. So that's, in theory, that's 200 posts for me to, to post about. Some of them are absolute utter shite, but still, if it generates traffic and generates content, then, definitely. And the one thing, in fact, OBS is a great thing for Teams. And also you've got things like, so OBS can be used as a virtual webcam within Teams, which is fantastic, because rather than have to worry about encoding and streaming and content delivery services, you can then just use it as webcam in Teams for your demonstrations or for your presentations as well. And also the NDI settings that you can do with Teams live events. But this is me going into sales pitch mode, so I'll stop. Sorry.
Sam's been very modest. So me and Sam worked together, and I was sat on a session that he did last week, a video session, which blew everyone away. So, and he's actually going to be one of our guest presenters in the April user group, which will be focused around Teams. That session. So
and I'll be using OBS for that as well. So it's great. I can capture sources from 4 different things. Well, I've only got 4 USB ports, so I'm sure I could probably do more if I tried. And also a virtual machine on my desktop, and it works really well. I use it for demonstrating to customers, and Shabazz will probably tell you if he hasn't already. There's actually a Surface Hub sat in my living room, which I use for demonstrations. It's driving the wife bloody balmy like, but again, it's just all about pushing that content out there and playing with stuff. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to delivering a session.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So,
Excellent.
Dean, going back to your thing about blogging and creating content for customers and then not wanting to put it on a blog, we discussed this with Richard Hooper, mentioned this as well a couple of weeks back, and his thoughts were, if you sanitize what you're doing for the customer, so it's got no customer data in there, technology solution is going to be a technological solution. So putting that publicly will make that available, and it's already done 90% of your documentation. You just got to make it customizable for your customer that you're doing it.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
you're not doing it twice.
I have thought of that, and I actually thought of it the other way around when I did think of it. When I kind of knew I was coming up to a project that I would need to do like WVD or Cloud Management Gateway or something. So I did a lab about it, and then wrote a blog about the lab, and then did that in the customer environment and added the customer's name in. So I did it the other way around, but I can see your point, and when Richard is right, you just do it once.
Yeah, so either way, you come to the same conclusion, don't you? You're only doing it once.
Yeah, good point.
I love how the conversation that sessions has started, Saj. Excellent. Honestly, it's started some interesting conversation. So well done.
Oh, that's what it's there for.
Yeah, 100%.
It's been very, very good. What I have noticed is, what, it's slightly different from what everyone else is doing, because what I'm finding is the same old thing. And this is like going right back to basics as such. And I think that's potential market there for this. There's not a lot of different stuff. It's all about, let's do like high level DevOps stuff and all that, and it's maybe something going forward. As you said, Shabazz, about someone just at uni trying to get the first job and give them a little bit of inside before when they can help them going for interviews and things,
Exactly. There's loads of content out there for school, for veteran kind of IT people, like most of us are. Let's face it, we've all been in IT for a fair few years now. There's loads of great content out there, and myself, Saj, and Imran, we just felt that we didn't see much for literally newbies. And again, Saj is a newbie to blogging, and I think there was Imran and Saj thought of the idea of doing a video series on starting up your own blog. Because I never had that. I never had a video that I could watch to follow, to try and to work out on my own. And Saj is lucky we have Imran to help him with it. But that's a market, like you said, Scott, that we feel is not being tapped into, and community-wise, and that's kind of going to be our aim. That's why we're getting new speakers on, trying to get newish speakers on every month if we can. So that's part of our aim. No, thank you for that feedback. That's really good.
No problem. I'm starting out in the cloud journey. I've reskilled up. I've been a hardware support engineer for 25 years. So I decided just before COVID kicked on that I wanted to reskill and just get out of the been stuck in a server room at 2 o'clock in the morning and things like that. And I've always wanted to do cloud, and I've been like watching YouTube videos and getting Udemy courses and doing all that and getting hands on. And it's now I've been all doing it on my own, and then obviously COVID kicked in, and it's like, so you know what, you're stuck indoors. What are you going to do? There's only so much Netflix and things you can watch. So I decided this is it, and so and it's good. There's content out there, and it's good that it's actually not. There's not enough British content as such. It's all getting full American, and even when you're going on Reddit, it's all about how much money I'm making. I'm making this. I'm making that. I've passed 6 exams in 1 month, type thing. Although obviously maybe you guys have seen that as well, and that doesn't worry me. Oh, look at me! I've got 20 qualifications, and I've only been IT 2 years, type thing. You know.
I completely agree. Shabazz will tell you, and you know, I won't name names, but we know a few people who, you know, will sit there and pass exams, but you ask them to go and do something that is related to said exam, or you know, quite skilled, and they struggle. Either that's because they haven't learned the technology properly and bluffed it through the exam, or dare I say, use brain dumped, or you know, or
there's loads.
Well, that's it. You know, I shamefully in my early IT career, I did dumped a lot because I was forced to pass exams to keep my job, basically, in my early years. But now I've got to the point where, you know what, experience probably trumps that now. And you know, at that company where myself and Shabazz work, yes, there's a focus on exams, but that's only to maintain a company partnership or a company competencies rather than a personal preference. So, and I know exactly what you mean about transitioning from sort of hardware to cloud, because I was very much Skype for Business on-premise, Link on-premise, Exchange on-premise, all physical servers, all physical sort of infrastructure, having total control over the IP stack of those servers, everything from event logs all the way up to, you know, the front end and all that kind of stuff. And now that's not my problem.
Yeah.
You know, still cloud, it's fine. But yeah, it was certainly a weird transition, and I think you'll enjoy the transition, especially with things like Udemy courses and resources online.
And Cloud Skill IO, that channel's phenomenal. It really is. It's helped me out a lot. So that's maybe a topic for you, Shabazz, as well, going from school and what to actually look out for to gain your first job type thing, yeah?
This is those things that me and Mohammed Sajid have discussed. Even getting a student on our podcast to even interview them and ask them about, you know, what their experience is at the moment in finding a job in IT. So yeah, no, we've got lots of big plans. This is the first one. And we're just glad to get it out of the way. And again, thank you for everyone who's joined. Really do appreciate everyone's support. And yeah, like I said, so just like we'll give you, you know what, I'm going to give you a spoiler for next month because you've been nice enough to join us. So next month's going to be we're naming it Women in Tech Month. It's actually I think it's International Women's Day on the 8th of March. So the whole month we're dedicating to women in tech. So we've got on the podcast, we have Holly Lehman and Isadora Kantich. Have I pronounced that right? I hope I have. We've got them on the podcast. They're going to be recording that with us next week. And then on the actual user group next month, we have Lisa Clark, aka Lisa in the Cloud. Is it Lisa in the Cloud? Lisa on the Edge. Lisa on the Edge. Yeah. And we have Shannon, whose last name I can't remember.
Keen,
yeah, the Microsoft advocate.
Yeah.
So they're both presenting, and I spoke to Lisa today, and I think they're actually planning some sort of combination potentially. So they've not let slip what they're presenting yet, but that's going to be an amazing month for us. And then obviously we've got Sam, and yet to find another presenter for April with him. So yeah, we've got some
time. I could fill the time.
We've got some great stuff planned. So yeah, thank you. Keep a lookout for it all. Thank you very much for all everyone's support.
Yeah, I just want to say, Shabazz, it's been because obviously you presented the first time at my user group, right?
I did, yeah, the UK WBD one.
Yeah. So it's pretty amazing to see your journey, mate. I'll be honest with you. It's obviously the blogging, doing various presentations and stuff. I love seeing people grow, and this is what it's all about, right? Because everyone can start from nothing to grow to what they want to. We all start from the same place, and to see these communities come together, it's really, really great. So
thanks, I appreciate your kind words. That was actually my second ever video session. I remember my second ever presentation that I did. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate your kind words. And like I said, we want to try and give people that chance as well. The same like the way you gave me that chance. You know, this was Sajid's first session. Hopefully, it'll be one of many more. And yeah, we would try. That's what we're trying to get new speakers, get them out there in the community, give them that focus, and that's our goal. Hopefully for this year.
I'm looking forward to Saturday. So bad.
Knackered already.
It should be good. I'm going to go into that. That should be fun and games.
That's a Scottish Summit by just if anyone's not sure, I'm presenting at that as well, so that should be good. I don't know if Neil, are you going to be presenting at that? I can't remember.
No, I'm not. I'm moving house this weekend, so.
Oh, of course, yes. Sorry, I forgot. Excellent. Well, good luck with that, by the way.
Thanks. I need it.
You'll be fine. Excellent. Well, again, yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for your support. And yeah, we'll be posting details about next month in the next few days, hopefully.
Take care. Speak to you soon, yeah?
Thank you, everybody.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you. Good night.
Right.
Cheers. Thank you.